The corner booth at our coffee shop. His booth now. Darius stood over my table, jaw tight, voice cracking in front of the whole cafe. Is this really how it's gonna be? Malik's hand rested warm on the small of my back. I didn't flinch. Didn't shrink. I looked Darius dead in his pretty brown eyes and said the words he'd carved into me 9 months ago. You're not boyfriend material. Not for me. The silence that followed tasted like freedom and fire. But Lord, let me tell you how we got here. My hands weren't shaking. That's the part that surprised me. Every nerve ending in my body was lit up like the 4th of July. Heat crawling up the back of my neck, my pulse thumping so hard I could taste copper on my tongue, but my hands were still, steady as stone. Darius blinked at me like I'd slapped him with a Bible in the middle of Sunday service. His lips moved but nothing came out. The barista behind the counter stopped wiping the espresso machine. 2 women at the window table froze mid-sip, eyes wide, necks craned, doing that slow look between us like they were watching the last 5 minutes of a Tyler Perry movie. Malik didn't move either. He just sat there, solid, warm, his thumb tracing one slow circle on my lower back like he was saying I'm right here without opening his mouth. And I thought, Lord, how did I get from color-coded spreadsheets and emergency fund calculations to standing in a coffee shop on Peachtree, handing a grown man his own medicine with a spoon? But to understand that, we have to go back. 5 years back. Before the heartbreak. Before the silence. Before I learned the difference between a man who wants you and a man who just wants you waiting. My name is Nia Carter. I'm 43 years old, and if you'd asked me 5 years ago to describe my life, I would have told you it was steady. Not glamorous, not tragic, just solid in a way I'd earned with my own 2 hands and a whole lot of sleepless nights. I worked operations for a mid-sized logistics company out in Midtown Atlanta. The kind of job where you're putting out fires before anybody even smells smoke. Spreadsheets, shipping schedules, warehouse audits, and Lord help us all when somebody misplaced an entire pallet of electronics somewhere between Savannah and the loading dock. My apartment was a 1-bedroom off Ponce, smelled like coffee grounds and shea butter, with one corner of the living room dedicated to 3 monitors, a wall of post-it notes, and a to-do list so color-coded it looked like stained glass. I knew when every bill was due, what sat in my savings, and exactly how many days my emergency fund would carry me if the whole world went sideways. I was the woman at work who caught the 6-figure billing error that 3 managers missed, the one who reorganized the entire Southeast routing schedule, and saved the company enough to fund a new warehouse lease. My boss called me indispensable. My coworker Denise called me scary efficient. I called myself prepared. Because when you grow up watching your mama stretch a dollar like it owed her money, you learn to build your own ballast, the unexciting, reliable weight that keeps the ship from tipping. And for 5 years, part of that ballast had a name. Darius Mitchell. We met through Andre Williams. Andre had decided to host a weekly game night at his place out in West End. Board games, cheap snacks, rotating crowd. Shanice, his wife, would put out a spread of wings and sweet tea, while Frankie Beverly played low on the Bluetooth speaker. At the 5th or 6th one, this man in a vintage tee sat across from me, bronze skin catching the lamplight, fresh fade so sharp it looked like geometry, arguing passionately about whether a strategy counted as cheating if the rulebook was vague. He had a crooked smile, an easy laugh, and a way of making small talk feel like a real conversation. That was Darius. We bonded over terrible horror movies and obscure R&B deep cuts that only 6 people on this earth seemed to know about. After a few weeks, game night turned into coffee on Tuesdays at this little spot 2 blocks from my apartment, the one with the exposed brick and the jazz humming low through ceiling speakers, where the barista knew our orders by heart. Movie nights on Fridays. Long text threads about everything from work drama to whatever ridiculous meme was going around. If there was a group hang at Andre's, we usually arrived together, left together, or at least texted each other on the way home. If you'd asked me 9 months into knowing him what we were, I would have said friends. If you'd asked me a year in, after he started texting me first thing in the morning and last thing at night, after he'd sit close enough on the couch that his arm brushed mine when he made a point, after "you're the only person I can really talk to about this" became a weekly phrase, I would have hesitated. I didn't fall in love all at once. It happened in the spaces between ordinary moments. Inside jokes nobody else caught. The way he'd remember tiny details I'd mentioned weeks earlier, my favorite hot sauce brand, the song that reminded me of my grandmother, how I took my grits with butter and cheese, never sugar, because that's how Mama Carter raised me. How he'd automatically claim the corner booth for us like it had our names carved into the wood. I told myself it was nothing. Told myself I was reading into things because I was tired and lonely, and he happened to be kind. But then there were the nights he'd talk about other women like passing weather. Went on a date. It was fine. Nothing special. And somehow still end the conversation with, "Anyway, what you doing this weekend? We should watch something dumb and scary." He wanted my full attention, my emotional labor, my time. What he didn't want I'd learn was me. 6 weeks ago, I finally snapped the rubber band I'd been stretching inside my chest. We were at our booth. He was going off about some drama at his office, his coworker had fumbled a client presentation, his manager was passive-aggressive, the usual Tuesday monologue. I was nodding, stirring my latte long after the foam had dissolved, and at some point I realized I wasn't hearing him anymore. Not really. I was watching his hands move as he talked, watching the way his eyes brightened when he laughed, and this thought hit me so sharp my whole body flinched. If he started dating someone seriously tomorrow, I would be expected to clap, smile, say I was happy for him, then sit quiet in the corner of his life while he slotted someone else into the space I'd been filling without the title. The thought made my stomach twist like somebody had wrung it out like a dish rag. "Nia, you okay?" he asked. I set my cup down. My hands were trembling just barely. "Yeah, I just need to say something." He straightened, that loose posture going tight. "Okay, what's up?" My heart was pounding so loud I felt it in my ears, in my teeth, behind my eyes. I'd rehearsed this a dozen times in my head, standing in my bathroom mirror with my bonnet on, whispering to my own reflection like a fool, and it still came out clumsy. "I have feelings for you. More than friend feelings. I have for a while now." There it was, on the table between us, more exposed than my chipped nail polish or the way my voice cracked on the last word. His face went through a whole sequence. Surprise. Something like concern. Then something I recognized only because I'd seen it aimed at stray dogs and awkward interns. Pity. "Oh, Nia," he said softly, setting his cup down like the ceramic might shatter. "I wasn't expecting that." He asked to think about it. I said sure, because what else do you say when your whole chest is caving in but your pride is still standing on its own 2 feet? We finished our coffee in the kind of silence where every clink of a spoon sounded like a gavel. When we hugged goodbye outside, it felt stiff, truncated, like we were both trying to remember where our hands were supposed to go. The next day he called. I was at work. I stared at his name on my phone for 3 rings, then ducked into the conference room and answered. No small talk, no "how's your day?" Just a quiet inhale and then the verdict. "Nia, you're kind, you're funny, and I love spending time with you. But I don't see you as girlfriend material. I think we're better as friends." Clean. Efficient. Almost clinical, like a doctor reading lab results he'd already moved on from. The words hit like cold water, shocking and clarifying all at once. "Okay," I said, "because that's what you say when your heart is cracking but your pride is still trying to stand." That night, he texted the same thing, almost word for word, like he needed it in writing so there'd be no misunderstanding. I stared at that screen for a long time. There was a version of me in some other universe who would have replied, "I understand. I'm just happy to still have you in my life." The version who would have kept showing up twice a week, taking whatever crumbs of attention he tossed her way while he dated other women and complained about them to her over coffee. I wasn't that version anymore. Something in me shifted. Not anger exactly. More like someone had flipped a light switch in a room I'd been stumbling around in for months. He didn't see me as girlfriend material. Fine. Then I would stop treating him like he was boyfriend material. I typed 2 words back. Fair enough. My thumb hovered over send. Once I pressed it, things would change. Maybe not for him. He'd still have his other friends, his other distractions. But for me, everything. I hit send. The message whooshed away and a strange calm settled over me. Thick as humidity before a summer storm. Not relief, not devastation. Just decision. From that moment on, the terms would be different. No more dropping everything because he needed to vent. No more rearranging my schedule to fit his. No more reading good morning texts like they were love letters when they were just habit. If I wasn't girlfriend material to him, then he wasn't going to be main character material in my life. I opened my laptop and looked at my calendar, not to find pockets of time for him, but to see what my life looked like without him at the center. A lot of evenings were suddenly free. I had no idea yet that those empty squares would become the space where everything finally started to change. From the morning after Darius's rejection, everything felt strangely quieter. Not peaceful, just unplugged. Like the background noise I'd been tuning out for 5 years had suddenly switched off and left behind a ringing silence that pressed against my eardrums. On Tuesday at 9:42 in the morning, Darius texted me like he always did. Coffee later, same time. Usually I would have smiled, shuffled my afternoon tasks, typed back something warm and willing. This time I stared at the screen feeling nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a simple truth settling into my bones like humidity. I didn't know him that ritual anymore. So I typed, can't today. Busy. Perfectly polite sentence. Perfectly accurate too. Busy reclaiming my own life. He responded with a thumbs up emoji, the kind he used when he didn't know what else to say. 5 days later he called about a horror movie screening at the Plaza, our theater. I told him I had plans. He asked with who. I didn't answer. By the end of the week he'd sent 3 variations of "Is everything okay? Did I do something? Talk to me." I responded to exactly one. Yeah, just busy. Not a lie. A new truth. I was busy giving myself back to myself. The following Tuesday I walked into a fitness studio off Peachtree in Buckhead. Not some dramatic revenge body moment. I just needed somewhere to put the extra time and the extra emotion that kept pooling in my chest like standing water. I took a beginner strength training class, thinking I'd blend into the back row, sweat a little, go home feeling accomplished, maybe run a bath with some Epsom salts and call it healing. Instead, halfway through deadlifts, the trainer crouched beside me, mahogany dark, athletic, warm brown eyes that didn't dart or dodge. Careful, he said. Your spine's doing a question mark thing. Mind if I adjust? I looked up. He demonstrated slowly, patiently, without a single trace of condescension. When I got it right, he smiled like he meant it. That's perfect. See, stronger than you think. That was Malik Thompson. Direct. Funny. Someone who didn't make conversations feel like puzzles I had to decode. After class he caught up with me near the lockers and asked if I wanted nachos at a spot he knew. No subtext. No mixed signals to untangle. No breadcrumbs. Just a man standing in front of me, clear as daylight, asking me to dinner. For the first time in longer than I could remember, someone's interest didn't make my stomach brace for heartbreak. We started spending time together. Easy and unforced, like rain falling where it was supposed to fall. Brunch spots in West End. Long walks through Piedmont Park. Conversations that flowed without me having to perform or decode or wait for the other shoe to drop. Meanwhile, Darius kept texting. Tuesday coffee later. I feel like things are weird. Can we talk? I typed back. Not avoiding, just been busy. Hope you're good. He replied instantly. Can we grab coffee anyway? I feel like I lost my best friend. I didn't answer, not because I was angry, but because something inside me whispered in Mama Carter's voice, clear as church bells. He didn't want to be your man. He don't get to act like your husband now. 5 days later, Malik texted me about a party at a friend's house on Saturday. When he sent the address, my stomach flipped. Andre's place. My Andre. The one who hosted game nights. The birthplace of my entire history with Darius. I stared at the screen. Malik sent a follow-up. Too weird. We can skip. I surprised myself typing back. Not weird. Let's go. Because it was time I stopped letting Darius be the gravitational center of every decision I made. Friday afternoon, Darius texted. There's a party tomorrow at Andre's. You going? I waited, then typed. Yeah, I'm going. Great. Want to ride together like usual? The assumption scraped something raw inside me. The autopilot of it. The way he still expected me to orbit. Actually, I typed, I'm bringing someone. The typing bubble popped up instantly. Who? You're dating someone? When were you going to tell me? I didn't respond. Not to be dramatic, not to punish him, but because I suddenly understood something with a clarity that tasted like cold sweet tea on a July afternoon. When someone tells you you're not enough, they don't get to demand a front row seat when someone else realizes you are. Saturday came fast. Malik picked me up at 7:30. He wore a simple black jacket and jeans. Nothing flashy, nothing performative, just comfortable in his own skin in a way that made me calmer around him. At Andre's place, the house glowed warm, music spilling through the screen door, laughter rolling out into the driveway. Andre opened up, did a double take when he saw Malik beside me, but shook his hand and stepped aside. Inside, near the kitchen, I spotted Darius talking to Shanice, laughing at something, and when he saw me his smile appeared automatically warm, the kind I used to live for. Then he saw Malik. His expression froze mid-smile like someone had hit pause on a movie. I nodded politely and kept walking. 15 minutes in, Shanice pulled me down the hall to Andre's office and shut the door, lips tight. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "You brought a date? It's been 5 weeks since everything with Darius. This is fast." "Fast for who?" I said quietly. "Me or him?" "He's upset, Nia." I let out a slow breath, feeling the exhaustion of it settle behind my eyes like a headache that had been building for years. That's not my responsibility. For 5 years I treated him like he mattered in every corner of my life. He made it clear he didn't feel the same. I'm allowed to adjust. She didn't have an answer. I opened the door and walked back into the noise and warmth. Through the rest of that night, Darius hovered at the edges of every room I entered. He asked me to step outside to talk. I said not right now. He told me I was avoiding him. I said, I'm existing. There's a difference. The look on his face baffled, wounded, like I'd rewritten the rules of a game he thought he owned. That look followed me all the way home. By the time Malik dropped me off, my chest felt lighter than it had in months. I didn't know yet that this new lightness would trigger a storm. The messages started just after midnight. I didn't see them until morning, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and a dull ache in my quads from deadlifts. My phone lit up with a wall of gray bubbles. Accusations. Guilt trips. You brought him to that party to shove it in my face. This is so unfair. You made me feel like an idiot. Call me when you're ready to talk like an adult. I scrolled slowly, feeling secondhand embarrassment and a dull, tired sadness. I typed back one message. You rejected me. I'm moving on. That's how it works. His reply was instant. But it's only been 5 weeks. That's not enough time. My thumbs moved before I could overthink it. Maybe not for you. But you're not the one who got the speech. You're sweet, but not in that way. You made your choice. I'm acting accordingly. Then came the line that made me laugh out loud in my kitchen. Bitter as black coffee. I didn't reject you. I just don't feel the same way. That's different. I typed back. That is literally what rejection is, Darius. You don't get to soften it for yourself and sharpen it for me. And then silence. 5 days later Andre called. Told me Darius was saying the whole thing felt calculated. That I'd brought Malik to the party to humiliate him. Andre said he was stuck in the middle. I told him he didn't have to be. But I could hear it in his voice, the loyalty splitting the discomfort, and I knew the next time I saw Darius it wouldn't be at a party. It would be somewhere that used to belong to us. Somewhere I'd have to decide once and for all whether I was going to keep shrinking or finally stand at my full height. That Sunday, Malik suggested grabbing coffee after my workout. The closest spot was the little cafe off Peachtree with the exposed brick and the corner booth that used to be ours. I said yes, because I was done giving up entire locations just because Darius might exist inside them. We pushed open the door. The bell chimed, and there he was. Corner booth. His booth now. His eyes locked on me, then moved to Malik, and his face did that same frozen thing. Malik leaned close. Is that him? Yeah. Want to go somewhere else? I looked at the counter, at the familiar barista, at the tables that had held so many hours of my life. No, I said. I come here all the time. I'm not avoiding places because he might be in them. We ordered. We sat halfway across the room. I could feel Darius's gaze like a draft on the back of my neck. And I knew, the way you know a storm is coming by the way the air changes, that he was going to walk over. That whatever happened next would close a door that had been swinging open for 5 years. I just didn't know yet that when it closed, the sound would echo through every corner of my life. 28 minutes. That's how long we sat there before his shadow fell across our table. Nia. His voice, smooth, familiar, loaded with something between hurt and entitlement. Can we talk outside? Malik glanced between us, then touched my arm. I'll be here. Take whatever time you need. I followed Darius onto the sidewalk. The air was crisp, the kind of cool Atlanta morning that made every sound louder, sharper. He walked a few steps from the door, then turned. Is this really how it's gonna be? And there it was. The moment from the beginning. The moment I'd been building toward without knowing it. But this time I wasn't standing outside my body watching. I was inside it, rooted, feeling every square inch of concrete beneath my shoes. The heat of the coffee still warm in my chest. Malik's steady presence like a lighthouse through the glass behind me. I looked Darius dead in his pretty brown eyes and said the words he'd carved into me 9 months ago. You're not boyfriend material. Not for me. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not fair, he managed, voice cracking at the seams. You're friend material, I continued, and my voice was calm, almost gentle. The way you speak to someone who needs to hear something they're not ready for. The kind of friend I run into at group events and make polite small talk with. Not the kind I build my emotional life around. You're being cruel, he whispered. No, I said softly. I'm being proportional. You told me I wasn't enough for the role I wanted in your life. I'm telling you, you're not enough for the role you got used to having in mine. His eyes glistened. I didn't know losing you would hurt this much. I believed him. That was the saddest part. He truly hadn't thought this far ahead. Maybe you should have thought about that, I said, before you asked me to swallow my feelings so you could stay comfortable. He shook his head slowly, jaw working like he was chewing on words that wouldn't form. You're not the person I thought you were. Neither are you, I said quietly. I used to think you'd want me to choose myself. Turns out you just wanted me to choose you no matter what you chose. For a moment we stood there in the thin, cool light. Then I stepped back. I need to go. My boyfriend is waiting. The word was deliberate in my mouth. Boyfriend. Not guy I'm seeing. Not friend from the gym. The look on his face told me he heard the difference. I turned and walked back inside without waiting for his response. But the story doesn't end on that sidewalk. See, I'm an operations woman. I solve problems for a living. And the problem I'd been solving for 5 years wasn't just Darius. It was the entire ecosystem that had taught me my needs were negotiable as long as I kept things easy for everybody else. So I did what I do best. I reorganized. 2 weeks after that coffee shop confrontation, I sent a group text to every person from Andre's game night circle. Not dramatic, not accusatory, just warm and clear. Hey y'all. I'm hosting a cookout at my place this Saturday. Good food, good music, good vibes. Bring yourselves and your appetites. I spent that week planning it with the same precision I used to reroute shipping schedules across 6 states. I mapped out the menu like a logistics board. Malik's boy Trent hauled his massive grill over Thursday night. I made Mama Carter's baked mac and cheese, the recipe she guarded like classified intelligence, the one with the 5 cheeses and the breadcrumb crust that made grown men go quiet. Candied yams. Cornbread from scratch. Collard greens simmering in a pot so big you could baptize somebody in it. Saturday morning I was up at 6:30, blasting Frankie Beverly through my Bluetooth speaker, cleaning my apartment with Fabuloso until the floors gleamed, laying out the good plates Mama Carter had given me when I got my own place. Don't you dare use these for regular Tuesday, she'd said. These are for when you're the host, baby. When the gathering is yours. And that's exactly what this was. Mine. When people arrived, the energy was different. Andre and Shanice came. Old game night regulars came. Malik moved through the room easy, talking to everybody, not performing, just present. And when Darius walked in 20 minutes late, scanning the room for the center of gravity he was used to occupying, he found it had moved. It had moved to me. I was the one people gravitated toward. I was the one handing out plates, choosing the playlist, holding court by the grill with Trent arguing about charcoal versus propane. Darius stood near the door with a bottle of wine nobody had asked him to bring, and for the first time, he was just another guest. Not the main character. Not the gravitational center. Just a man holding a bottle at someone else's gathering. He stayed 45 minutes, made polite small talk, then left without saying goodbye. Andre texted me that night. That was the best cookout I've been to in years. Malik's a good dude. You seem happy, Nia. For real. I read it twice, then set my phone on the counter. Not because I was angry. Because there was nothing left to say. I'd already said it all on that sidewalk in that text thread. And now in the language I spoke most fluently, the quiet, organized architecture of a life rebuilt on my own terms. Weeks later, Malik and I were walking through the farmer's market on a Sunday morning. A new tradition that fit us in a way old routines never had. He picked up a bunch of fresh basil and said, "We should make pasta tonight. Homemade." I teased. "I'll handle the dough," he said, nudging me with his shoulder. "You can be my moral support." Deal. It was simple. It was quiet. It was the kind of easy that doesn't need to announce itself. We stopped at a stand selling handmade candles, then a stall with sunflowers so bright they looked painted. Malik insisted on buying some from my kitchen window. As we walked, hand brushing hand, I realized something that settled into me like warmth after a long chill. This wasn't a rebound. This wasn't a distraction. This wasn't revenge. This was a life where I wasn't a placeholder. I wasn't an almost. I wasn't an emotional convenience store, open all hours for a man who never intended to pay full price. I was someone's first choice. And more importantly, I was my own first choice. Later that evening, slicing tomatoes while Malik stirred the sauce and hummed something low and sweet under his breath, I thought about something Darius had said during our last confrontation. "You're not the person I thought you were." Good, I thought. Because the person he thought I was someone who lived her life waiting for his approval. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. And the new one? She doesn't wait for anyone. The peace I felt wasn't the fragile kind you guard desperately, clutching it to your chest like it might blow away. It was the grounded kind you build intentionally, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, one honest word at a time. Whatever came next, labels, commitments, the future unfolding however it pleased, I knew one thing for certain. I chose myself first. Everything else was just a bonus. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I truly appreciate you being here. Did you enjoy it? If this story touched something in you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. I'd love to hear from you. Drop your own experiences in the comments, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we carry with us every day. And if you don't mind, rate this story from 1 to 10. Your feedback means the world. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, you are always worth choosing first.